Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America.
Good night and good luck.
This week you saw a photograph. It's a photograph of an event in the Oval Office where during a Health and Human Services press conference, a man collapsed and fell to the floor. The photograph, though, is of Donald Trump. The man's been on the ground for a minute or two. He's surrounded by people. There's yelling, there's movement in the room. And the photograph is Donald Trump staring straight ahead. Emotionless, affectless, no concern in his eyes, no movement, no recognition of what's happening around him. And that speaks to something that really struck me, because sometimes a photograph is so emblematic, so symbolic, so encapsulating a moment and the character of the person in the frame that it means something in the culture. And I think that photograph means something. And I want to warn Republicans what it means today, because the elephant in the room is Donald Trump's indifference. Sure, some rando falls over in the White House, and that's one thing. And Trump is not a man exactly overflowing with the milk of human kindness.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
Quiet. You're really obnoxious.
Referring to John McCain, a war hero, 5.5 years as a POW, and you call him a dummy.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
Not exactly a man for whom compassion is the first emotion you would associate with. But there's something bigger here. Donald Trump is indifferent to the suffering of others. He always has been. And I can tell you, folks, I am the leading anthropologist of this man in the country. I have written 2 books about him. The 3rd book is not about Donald Trump. He's a character in it, but he's not the center of it. I have studied him closer than I ever hoped to study anything else in my life. Something that's unpleasant. I have plenty of stuff. I hope to study plenty of other fun things, but when you learn about him, you learn he has no ability to connect with humans. He has no rational interior monologue that says, I should help that person who is suffering. And this is something that really tells you about why we're where we're at right now. A normal president would have said, man, if we shut down the government, we were going to screw all those poor people, all those veterans, all those folks that depend on air traffic controllers and the Coast Guard and all the things that you don't think of as, even as a Republican, of the evil cliche big government. A normal president who was not indifferent to human suffering would have said 44 million Americans in 25 million families who get SNAP. I can't shut this place down and starve people. An ordinary president of any party, Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative, would say, I can't be the guy who starves kids at Thanksgiving. I can't be the guy who shuts off food aid for working poor people.
So let's bring in Michelle Lockhart. She is a SNAP recipient. She's joining me now from Tennessee to talk about this.
Myself, I was diagnosed stage 4 cancer in 2022, and I've been unable to work since 2023, a SNAP benefit recipient for about a year now. And it's not just myself, it's others in the community, others like me, people that are no longer able to work. And without the SNAP benefits, we're unable to put food on the table as normal. You know, I truly believe the money is there. I just think it's a position of power and not willing to do so at this time.
Americans across the board are equally angry at Democrats, they're angry at Republicans, and they're angry at the President of the United States. They don't really care about the politics of it all. They just want to pay for their groceries. They want to make sure that their kids are able to eat. They want to make sure that people who are in need of it, like you, who are struggling with an illness, are able to get groceries. What is your message to lawmakers who seem to be unwilling or unable to do what's required to help the American people?
You know, take a moment and put yourself in our position, not in your position, because in your position, they can go get what they need, what they want. This is a dire need for us, and they need to see it that way. It's not that we want it, it's that we need it to survive.
If you're not indifferent to suffering, you don't deprive a mom who gets up at 4 a.m, starts getting her kids ready for school, drives them to school, goes and works a job all damn day, probably on her feet, probably for less than $10 an hour, can barely put gas in the car on the long, long drive home, picks the kids up from school, takes the kids home, starts dinner, makes dinner, helps them with their homework, puts them to bed. By the time she's done that day, her feet are killing her, her knees are killing her, her head is throbbing. She has no time for herself. She knows she has to get up and do it all again in the morning. And only the most indifferent person in the world would say, you know what we should do to that woman? We should take away the pitiful, tiny amount of federal SNAP food benefits we give her for her kids. But he's indifferent to human suffering. He's indifferent to human suffering at a level that I cannot think of another, certainly no president in the modern era, certainly no president in the last 150 years who has been so completely callous to the harm he is causing. He's indifferent to the economic destruction that he's been delivering to the people who are his strongest supporters. You know who his strongest supporters of Donald Trump were? Rural Americans, folks in the farm economy, farmers, ranchers, timber folks. They've been screwed like nothing else I've ever seen before economically. They're not selling soybeans overseas. They're not selling corn. They're not selling timber. None of it's all over. It's gone. It's done. And he did that. He chose that. Why? Because even though they were political supporters, even though they were people who love him, who believed in him, who bought the line that he was going to make them economically successful, he's indifferent to their suffering. He does not care. These union guys who were traditional Democrats who have now all flipped over to support Trump, those automobile factories that are closing, manufacturing all throughout the Northeast and the upper Midwest that's closing because of the tariffs. He does not care about you. He does not give a damn about you. He is indifferent to your suffering. And because he's indifferent to suffering, you can see why he doesn't even have a moment's hesitation about spending most of his time putting up Timu gewgaws in the White House and planning for his $300 million bribery-funded golden whorehouse next to what was the White House. He's indifferent to that human suffering. If you knew your nation was suffering economically, then you were a normal president. Unless you're building a data center right now, getting a job in America is like finding a naked leprechaun riding a unicorn down your street. It ain't happening. The AI economy out of Silicon Valley is dragging the rest of the economy along. And when that bubble pops, and it's looking like it might pop, this country's going to be in a depression. But he's indifferent to that human suffering. He's indifferent to it because any normal president would not have had a Great Gatsby themed party while people have literally been cut off from food aid and are starving. He would not have a Great Gatsby party while people in this country are struggling to make ends meet. He would not have a Great Gatsby party where Americans are facing a crashing real estate market. Their homes are not worth what they thought. They're getting to be upside down. A lot of mortgages out there, folks, start to smell like 2008 all over again. The job market is a disaster. We've got the government now saying warm and loving things about Sam Altman, who this week, getting the the giant mega tax cut wasn't enough for Sam Altman, he's now asking the government to subsidize OpenAI's development of artificial intelligence. And Trump's administration is going to do it. That's because they're indifferent to your economic suffering. But this week was an interesting one. Because 3 candidates from 3 very different places had one message. And by the way, anyone who tells you any other message was the fundament of this week's decision, other than affordability and the economy and the reflection of Trump's failures in that area, anybody who tries to shoehorn in their bullshit about, it was about gun control or it was about this or that. No, it wasn't about gun control or climate change or LGBT or abortion or anything else. It was about Trump has wrecked the economy and he's hurting people. He's hurting you. And he's indifferent to your suffering. These 3 candidates in 3 very different places range the ideological spectrum. I would say that Spanberger is a centrist.
We sent a message to every corner of the Commonwealth, a message to our neighbors and our fellow Americans across the country. We sent a message to the whole world that in 2025, Virginia chose pragmatism over partisanship. We chose our Commonwealth over chaos. You all chose leadership that will focus relentlessly on what matters most: lowering costs, keeping our communities safe, and strengthening our economy for every Virginian.
That Nick Sherrill is a center-left.
I know these are tough times. I know not everyone voted for me, but I'm working for everyone. Every single one of you. When we all do better, we all do better. So tomorrow begins a new day. And at each new day in New Jersey, the sun rises over the Statue of Liberty, a daily reminder of her promise. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free.
And I would say that Zoran Mondani is quite left. He's progressive left. He's far left.
President Trump, when I say this, to get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us. When we enter City Hall in 58 days, expectations will be high. We will meet them.
But in New York City, a city that used to be about the big issues of crime, public safety, quality of life, and abortion, social cluster, was not. People came out to vote because they can't afford to live in a city anymore where the middle class income now, a married couple with 2 children, to be middle class in New York now, you have to make over $350,000 a year. And that is not a luxurious lifestyle. That is getting by in a tiny apartment. Rent is out of control. The city's expense ratio is beyond human rationality. And so Mamdani ran a campaign over and over again about affordability, about bringing costs down, about bringing rents down, about having a city where people from every walk of life can afford to live. And that has been New York's great engine and dynamism for 275 years or so now, even older than our country by a good stretch. It was a place where people from all over the world would come, they'd build a business, they'd build a life, they'd have their families, and those families would become Americans. And and this magical city that I love dearly. There are times I miss living there. I not always, but there are times I really miss living there because the stories are so woven into everything. And the story was getting narrower over the last few years. The story was becoming Yeah, if you've made your money in tech, or if you made your money in real estate, or if you made your money in private equity, or made your money on Wall Street, yeah, you could afford to live in New York. But increasingly, it was less, there were fewer and fewer families living in New York. It was more affluent people my age. That's not a city. That's a fancy nursing home. That's a retirement village. But Mamdani campaigned on making the city affordable. Now, whether he can get there or not is irrelevant. It's the campaign we're talking about, okay? And I have plenty of questions and plenty of issues. But this is the campaign. He stayed disciplined and focused all the time. He got a reaction out of people because they were sick of people being indifferent to their suffering. They were sick of people who didn't give a shit about them. They were sick of people like Donald Trump, who believes the only real people are real estate guys or Wall Street guys or private equity guys. The only real city is in his golden tower or in private clubs in Manhattan. And Mamdani went out there and he beat the drum for affordability. In New Jersey, Mike Sherrill, Navy veteran, helicopter pilot. We were on Bill Maher together one time. Smart as a whip. Really, really, really smart. She ran about on affordability as well. But in New Jersey, it was also about the rising cost of electricity, because there's 1 billion data centers going to New Jersey, because obviously the AI people have to have their data centers every goddamn corner of America. But she talked about how those people were being subsidized while ordinary voters and citizens in New Jersey were being screwed by higher prices. She talked about things like traffic, job creation, roads, infrastructure. But over and over again, she told people, you're paying too much. Your taxes are too high. Your expenses are too high. Your rent is too high. It was a brilliant approach. And it was disciplined over and over again. And you know why people responded to it? Because they looked at Jack Ciattarelli, her opponent, and said, there's another rich guy, another buddy of Donald Trump's, who is indifferent to my suffering, who doesn't care about me, who doesn't give a shit about anybody, who isn't another rich guy. I have nothing against money. Believe me, I am a raving capitalist. I want people to get rich. I want everybody to do well. I want people to prosper. But you see a guy like Jack Ciattarelli, and it just didn't connect. Nobody thought, he's going to help me pick up. He's going to help me build something. He's going to help me afford my life. He's going to help me live in a world where my kids can think about owning a home someday. And that was the great suburban dream of New Jersey. A lot of those families who came to New York moved out to New Jersey, moved out to Long Island, because it was a little more affordable. It was a place they could settle. It's a place that they could build the American dream, and a place where they could tell their kids, hey, you work hard like I did, like your grandfather did, like your great-grandfather did, like your grandmother did, over and over. You can have this too. You can have the neighborhood. You can have the local school. You can have the little house in the suburbs. Is it a private jet lifestyle? No. Is it the big fancy Instagram lifestyle? No. But for generations and for millions of Americans who lived in New Jersey, it was a good life. It was a good life. It was a life where people were not indifferent to the suffering of others. It was a life where people understood that their communities that had in New York wouldn't transfer one-to-one. They sure transferred. They built them up. I was fascinated the first time I really spent much time in New Jersey. My former wife was her from Maine originally, but they had a beautiful place, a little town in North Jersey. And it was like a small town. There was a main street. And you didn't think about that. It was like I was shocked. It didn't feel like the sort of TV image of Newark. But there's all these communities around North Jersey now that are unaffordable for normal people. That family in New York, that's that middle-class family that's in a 2-bedroom apartment making $350 a year, is looking at a house in North Jersey for $3 or $4 million. Same unaffordable problem. Cheryl went out and campaigned on telling people, we're going to make things more affordable for you. We're going to get that cost of electricity down, which I call the data center tax, by the way. You pay the data center tax because of their electric bills. And then we go to Virginia, where Abigail Spanberger ran a picture-perfect textbook campaign for a modern Democrat in this era. Did she spend her days talking about culture war issues? No. When they brought them up to her over and over again, because the entire Republican campaign was trans. That was the Republican campaign. Almost nothing else. When they would do that, she would say, no, I got other things to do. We're talking about affordability. We're talking about maybe getting people's jobs back. The idea that firing 150,000 federal workers, who a lot of whom live in Northern Virginia, apparently never entered into the minds of Russ Vought and Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And folks, I'm getting to the key of this whole talk here in just a second. But Abby Spanberger ran a absolutely letter-perfect campaign. It's a purple state. Southwest Virginia is deeply conservative, deeply religious, deeply, deeply red. Northern Virginia is more center-left. The 7 big counties in Northern Virginia make up about 60% of the vote in the state. And she wiped the floor with Winsome Sears. Her message of affordability, her message of job creation, her message of economic growth and prosperity for everybody in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it resulted in moving the reddest districts in Virginia between 7 and 22 points toward the Democrats. She broke off every single one of those young male voters that Trump had snatched up and rented in 2024. She got them. Cheryl did very well with them also. She got back the coalition that Trump had rented. She got back those Hispanic men. She got back those younger African-American men. She got back a lot of the suburban women who were in that Maha, whatever weirdness. She did this by focusing like a laser on affordability. Because when you're talking as a candidate to voters about affordability, you know what you're really telling them? I'm not indifferent to your suffering. I'm going to help you. And this, folks, is a bounding and limiting function of the MAGA philosophy. This MAGA hate machine is big. It's expansive. It's powerful. It's unified much of the time. But it has a pessimistic limit because they're about the darkness. They're not about making America great. They're about making the enemies of their party suffer. QED everything. And that suffering is not a philosophy of governance. I'm going to be a bigger dick to people who are poor. I'm going to punch down on people who can't fight back. That's MAGA. That's their whole shtick. And it's a fundamentally sad and kind of pessimistic approach to political life. But Spanberger in Virginia inverted that and ran a campaign that was about governing. And again, folks, she talked about getting the price of the everyday life down, groceries. She talked about having a government that helped people survive. And it talked about the infrastructure stuff that people realize it's a big part of their life.
To those who have been impacted by the mass layoffs, by furloughs, by the hardships that you are experiencing, please know that I will direct the full power of the governor's office to support you. And to those across the Potomac who are attacking our jobs and our economy, I will not stand by silently while you attack Virginia's workers. I will fight every single day for every single Virginia jobs, the ones we have now and the ones we will bring to our Commonwealth into the future. I will stand up to anyone who tries to harm our economy or the livelihoods of our Virginians.
You want that commute home to be 2 hours or an hour and 5 minutes or whatever it is. And Virginia has a lot of money. It's a wealthy state. It can do a lot more. And Glenn Youngkin was just an inert kind of, Trump cipher in the end. But she showed them she was not indifferent to their suffering. And they won. All three of those folks won. You also had Democrats win in Georgia on statewide races for the Public Service Commission. You had Democrats do well on Long Island and Huntington on Long Island, which had turned very red lately. Quite red lately. You had local Democrats in Florida in the Orlando area, which is MAGA pickup seats on city councils and county commission type seats. They did it by talking about the economic lives of people and telling them, we see your suffering. We're going to work to fix it. There are no miracles promised here. So I maybe promised a few miracles, but they didn't promise miracles. They promised to work for people. Now, I want to say one more thing. Our Republican friends, our MAGA friends, are having a terrible week.
I don't think the loss last night was any reflection about Republicans at all. I think people are frustrated and angry, as we are. I am, the president is, and we express that different ways. But look, we look forward. We're looking forward to a great election, running on our record, and we're gonna get all of our incumbents reelected, and we're going to add to the number here.
And I have some bad news to pile on top of the bad news for you. Donald Trump is indifferent to your suffering. He does not care. People in the House right now, and I've been picking it up today. I've had 2 or 3 different people today that I know in DC who are all picking up these stories out of the Capitol. Mike Johnson's time is running out. John Thune's time is running out. All of these elected Republicans are scared to death. And you know what, guys? You should be, because you made a mistake. You bound yourself to Trump. You tied yourself to Trump. Like you superglued yourself to Trump. Your fate, your life was all about Trump. Does he tweet something nice about me or something mean about me? And so you stopped being the representative from the 3rd District of North Carolina or wherever. And you started being the North Carolina 7th MAGA representative for Donald Trump. All of them have done it, including the ones who are now saying, oh, that's not me. I'm not like that. That's not. I'll give you an example. Mike Lawler in New York pretends he's not a Trumper, but yet votes for Trump in the House 97% of the time. Once in a blue moon, he'll have a little. These guys who think that they're going to get away with having bound themselves to Trump, sworn blood oaths, sworn eternal fealty to Donald Trump in a world where Donald Trump has harmed the American people at the scale he has harmed them, in a world where Donald Trump has harmed the character and the fabric of this nation to the degree he has done it, they think they're just going to walk away and go, Donald Trump, I haven't read the tweet. Well, I think I've heard of that Trump fellow. Tell me more. You can't get away with it, guys. I'm sorry. It ain't happening. And I can tell you one thing. Whether the Democrats do it or not, the Lincoln Project is going to remind you, son of a bitches, every day of this campaign, how far up Donald Trump's ass you have been, how deeply, 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 deeply cynical you were when you sold your souls and you sold out the people in your district. You told the people in your district, I am indifferent to your suffering. No more than a handful of you, and by this I mean fewer than a dozen members of the Republican caucus, have objected to the tariffs, including Republicans in farm states, including Republicans in Rust Belt states, including Republicans who have people and companies in their districts who have suffered tremendously. Most of you have been like, oh, tariffs have brought in 87 gazillion, $11 billion, and we love it. You know, the people in your districts know that's a lie, right? You get it? You understand that they know you're lying to them, right? But it's okay, because all of you have to really, really understand one big thing. When Donald Trump's not on the ballot, your coalition falls apart. QED 2018, QED 2022, QED 2025. When Donald Trump's not on the ballot, you guys are selling something ugly and unpalatable. I know a lot of you are thinking, well, I'm just going to go and run an ad about the transes and the Muslims. Maybe it works. Maybe it works in your very red districts. It's about 30 seats, 35 seats, maybe 40 seats now. If you model this even in the most pessimistic boundaries of how Tuesday night came out, y'all are looking at a 40-seat wipeout. Now what? Many a slip twixt the cup and the lip. Democrats have always been known to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. But for you Republicans who are thinking right now, yeah, you know what? My big plan is to run the greatest hits of 24 and hope Donald Trump tweets something nice about me. You have to understand, guys, He is indifferent to your political suffering. He does not care. There's a world where Donald Trump in the minority is better for him. He's thinking about it right now. He's going to act from executive power and say, "If you stop me." That way he doesn't have to have Mike Johnson. That way he doesn't have to have Jim Comer. And by the way, folks, I've been around politics now all my adult life. I have known hundreds of members of Congress. And in the category of the stupidest person ever to live, Jim Comer is probably somewhere in the top one. But Trump doesn't need those people as committee chairs in the last 2 years. He's just going to be pure chaos. I want to say this, Republicans, when you lose your majority, Democrats aren't going to play the same game this time. They're not going to just go for Trump to try to impeach him. I wouldn't bother. But they will go for all the things you knew about. They will go for all the things that Trump has done that are corrupt. They will go at the lobbyists and the billionaires who are funding this unbelievable corrupt enterprise at that White House. And a lot of you have your fingers in the same pie. And you won't have Donald Trump to protect you. He's not on the ballot. By that time, shit, he might not even be alive this time next year. Donald Trump's weakness is growing. And the weaker he gets, the angrier he gets, the less he needs you. He's on the back end of this. And look, he's going to try to run again in 28 because he's a gambler. He's going to try to run again in 28, just to throw a dart at the wall and maybe it sticks on the board. He's going to demand all of you back him in that play, every single one of you. He's going to call you all to the White House and say, you have to sign the loyalty pledge to Donald Trump. What's one more chunk of your soul? You've already signed away most of your autonomy and your agency and your dignity and your integrity. And now you're facing headwinds like you've rarely seen. The older ones among you know that smell in the wind is 1994. That smell in the wind is 2010. You know what happens when there's a blowout coming. You know what happens when the winds have shifted, when the politics have changed. And I have to tell you, you're going to know what happens when you realize that Donald Trump is utterly indifferent to your suffering. That, folks, is this week's Elephant in the Room. Thanks so much for listening to me here on Lincoln Square. You can check me out every Tuesday night on the Strategy Session with Joe Trippi and Stuart Stevens. You can catch me on Thursdays with Maya May on The Breakdown. You can also catch me on Fridays with Andrew Wilson when we do Behind the Numbers, where we take apart the weekly polling. And I got to tell you, we're having so much fun with the show because every week, like at the end of every show, like it can't get worse next week for Trump. And every week for the last 8 or 9 weeks, it's gotten so much worse. Like crazy. You can also read me on my Substack at Against All Enemies. You can check me out writing on Lincoln Square from time to time. And you can, of course, follow us at The Lincoln Project on our YouTube channel. If you would do that, I would be very appreciative. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again.
Good night and good luck.